Tonight, after gunshots and destruction of an important symbol shattered the feeling of security for a tight-knit Jewish community, Elon Chabad is still seeking answers more than a year later, as 2 acts of hate pave the path to rebuilding.
If we want to send a message to fellow Jews here in town or in Elon University or wherever who are watching, and they are thinking, maybe I should lay low with my Judaism. If we want to send them a message not to do that, to not cower in fear and to not be silenced, then we need to erect a nicer, bigger, better menorah.
Black business owners struggling to keep their doors open during the coronavirus pandemic.
Right now, I'm not making any money. I'm just keeping the business going.
And accessing the one loan that could help keep employees on payroll, some still never received.
What was the process like applying for a PPP loan?
Completely harrowing.
What we've seen from the pandemic is sort of an uncovering of inequities that have been there for decades. And we see that because we see those inequities in our own homes. So everything that we've been discussing isn't hidden behind school doors anymore.
As COVID-19 continues to rage through the U.S. and force school doors shut, it's opening another door, revealing inequalities for students of color.
I'm Isabella Seman.
I'm Brian Ray.
I'm Courtney Weiner.
Those stories tonight on 30 Minutes. According to the FBI, hate crimes rose to its highest level in more than a decade in 2019. Although hate comes in many forms, no religious group has faced more acts of hate than those of the Jewish faith. That includes a small college community in North Carolina, where one Chabad house has seen 2 direct acts of aggression within 7 months. But following a shooting and vandalism, the tight-knit group sought to take a path of healing, displaying perseverance by keeping their faith.
Rabbi Mendy Mingowitz has attended Yom Kippur services his entire life, but the one he experienced on October 9th, 2019 was like no other.
I heard it very clearly, but I didn't at all think it was a gunshot. First of all, I'm not used to hearing gunshots, so it's not the first thought that goes to my mind.
It was a gathering at a local Chabad, a space for Elon University's Jewish community to gather just steps away from campus. Inside, nearly 40 Jews breaking fast for one of the holiest holidays on the Jewish calendar.
I just remember thinking like, oh my God, like it really was gunshots. And the first thing that went through my mind is there's no way this is a coincidence.
Outside, bullet holes broke glass windows and damaged cars, shattering the feeling of security at a safe space.
There was a car that was struck by gunfire potentially because someone just hates us to the point they want to hurt us.
For Rabbi Mendy, Chabad is much more than a gathering place, but also a home to his wife and 3 children.
And here's my 5-year-old son who knows nothing, knows no harm, knows no evil. And the closeness of the 2 things struck me, He is literally in the line of fire. He knows of no reason why anyone should want to hurt us, and yet he's a target.
But in May, that hate was reaffirmed when the symbol tying this house to their faith was damaged.
That's when security camera footage installed after the shooting caught this. Someone outside tearing down their menorah on their front lawn.
My first feeling was a feeling violated, Like someone stepped on my personal property, touched something personal, private of mine or of our community, and just damaged it without any care for the fact that to us it's important.
Bearing a tattoo of the Star of David and a necklace with her name in Hebrew, Elon Chabad President Sammy Herbert watched the footage in horror, seeing the symbol of her faith damaged at her home away from home.
Someone really took the time out of their day to tear down this huge symbol of unity. At least that's what it looks like to me. And you had nothing better to do right now than to, cause more havoc in someone else's life.
It was really devastating. We all immediately went over. We saw the menorah in shambles in the front yard.
Joe Fradkin is no stranger to the Chabad community. That's why this California native chose Elon University.
People still not understanding us and people still feeling like they have to act out in such a way that is really painful for us who find that house to really represent safety, to then feel unsafe yet again.
But Town of Elon police don't have any solid leads.
Do you have any suspects right now?
We do not at this time.
So why aren't there any suspects right now?
Well, we're really doing the best we can.
sometimes it's just hard. We've got video of suspect cars, but again, it occurred at nighttime, and when we get videos, it's fairly grainy. And that makes it kind of hard to, with you know, the pixels and stuff, at nighttime, it makes it hard to really get a good identification on a vehicle.
Detective Ed Peters is leading the investigation for local law enforcement. He says he's working closely with the FBI. Fingerprints found on the Menorah and a social media investigation both led to nothing.
At what point do you ever close the investigation? Do you always keep it open?
Well, a lot of times they'll leave that up to me, but I don't like to close anything. You know, it doesn't hurt to keep it active. We don't like to, but I would rather have that folder sitting right beside my desk so I can look over and say, hey, if something pops up, I've got it right here.
Chabad privately pays a uniformed Elon police officer to stand guard outside. They're on watch for any other threats to Rabbi Mendy's home.
How does that make you feel, saying that your family lives here and you have to have a cop car parked outside?
So obviously it's a mixture of relief. I'm happy that we're protected, and obviously it's uncomfortable to know that we need that. You know, I don't like to have to need security. I want to just be a free person like everybody else without needing extra security to be safe. I am a big proponent of the fact that police cars, cameras, surveillance systems only protect you from the symptoms of anti-Semitism. They don't protect you from the ideology. If you want to truly defeat any rotten ideology for that matter.
A rise in anti-Semitic crimes isn't unique to Elon. Earlier this year, the Chabad house at the University of Delaware was set on fire, leaving an estimated $200,000 in damages. According to the Anti-Defamation League, in 2019, over 2,100 anti-Semitic incidents occurred across the country, the most since tracking began 40 years ago.
And you said the past 4 years we've seen anti-Semitism more. Why do you think that is?
They've always been there. It's not as though this is brand new. They've always been just below the surface. But I think the internet has made it possible for groups like this to sort of join together.
David Crow is one of the nation's leading Holocaust scholars, studying anti-Semitism and its roots. He says the stereotypes used against Jewish people are a lot more harmful than we think.
This idea of Jews being immensely wealthy and powerful is simply not true. I mean, you know, the average Jewish person is just a very normal human being, hardworking and things like that, like any other American.
Why do you think these stereotypes haven't fizzled out? Why do you think they're still prevalent today?
I think because they're so deeply ingrained in the fabric of Western culture. I mean, there's some things you can't root out.
To educate yourself with specific people, go find a single Jew in the flesh and blood and meet them. See if they really live up to all the bad things you heard about them. Would you really fire shots in a home with children inside? I think you wouldn't, and I think that if you would, it's because you never really thought about it in such concrete terms.
And the anti-Semitic ideology won't cause Herbert and the Chabad community to back down. They say nothing will force them to drop their identity.
I hope anti-Semites don't continue to target us, but even if they do, it doesn't worry me. Never do I think this is it, this is the end, this is my Judaism I have to put in my back pocket and keep it a secret. Never do I think that, because I know that the Jewish people, we're a small group, but we always come out on top.
Fradkin says attendance to weekly Friday Shabbat gatherings increased after the incidents. They even had to tear down a wall to make room for everyone.
And it really was beautiful because it spread awareness that we're here. And for a lot of Jews on campus who didn't even know, because the house is slightly off of campus, I think that afterwards it really did grow the awareness of our community, and it has stayed strong. I mean, our numbers are really incredible compared to what they used to be.
If we want to send a message to fellow Jews here in town or in Elon University or wherever who are watching, and they are thinking, maybe I should lay low with my Judaism. If we want to send them a message not to do that, to not cower in fear and to not be silent, then we need to erect a nicer, bigger, better menorah.
After raising over $80,000 from donations around the country, they used it in hopes of sending a message to hate. Mendy's community was able to partner with a local artist to build a new menorah. The design? A phoenix. Not only is it Elon University's mascot, but also a symbol of resurrection, an ode to what the Chabad community experienced.
I didn't know what I was intending, and I was concerned because I wasn't sure he was going to actually like it.
Nearly a year after the first violent act on this Jewish community, there's closure, with a new menorah, cementing their faith.
Having such a beautiful one that's far, far nicer than the one we had previously gives me a sense of vindication, I think, you know? Not only do we have a menorah again, but we have a nicer one in the face of all those who wished otherwise.
The fact that the menorah just got put up, what has the Jewish community in Elon been saying?
Those of us who are consistent Chabad goers are completely obsessed with it. I mean, it is amazing. And even those who maybe don't go to Chabad, it's really important for us to have that visual.
Leading the community to build back, stronger than ever.
We're still here, like thousands and thousands of years later. I mean, there has never been a time in Jewish history that has not been shaped by our persecution. And we're still here, and we're still growing, and we're still getting stronger.
This has really just demonstrated our strength, and it's demonstrated the fact that there's nothing that can happen to our community that's going to take it away from us. It doesn't take away from the fact that it is sad and it's hard and it's devastating that we live in a place where it's not always safe to publicly express our Judaism, but it also only demonstrates how unified we are and how proud we are of our Jewish heritage.
It has been over a decade since America recovered from the 2008 recession, causing global economic devastation. Now, as the coronavirus pandemic continues to take over the world, small business owners find themselves laying off employees, needing loans, and struggling to adapt to new COVID-19 guidelines. The small businesses affected the most are Black-owned businesses. Kristin Chan reports.
Hassan McNeil is the owner of Alpha Dogs, a Jersey-style hot dog restaurant in Raleigh, North Carolina. With the help of friends and family, McNeil opened the doors to his business last October, and now, a year later, he had to lay off 2/3 of his staff.
I'm trying to stay afloat. You know, a lot of my employees just got their last checks a couple weeks ago.
While most businesses in the U.S. are struggling to make ends meet and get their stores back to normal, minority-owned businesses have struggled the most, with 41% of Black-owned businesses nationwide closing because of COVID-19. According to a report by the National Bureau of Economic Research, only 17% of white-owned businesses had to close. How does that make you feel with that 24% difference?
We are a country. We are one. So for us to be successful as one, we all have to have the same opportunities. Because, you know, there's this stereotype that's put out there at times that minorities is lazy, they want something for free, they don't want to work hard for it, and that's far from the truth.
McNeil has made an effort to prove this stereotype wrong, being the first restaurant owner in his family and working 6 days a week to show that not even a pandemic can stop him.
For someone who tried to label me less than, they're wrong, as you can tell. It burns me up. It keeps the fire going.
Tammy Hall is the division director for the Office for North Carolina's Historically Underutilized Businesses, also known as HUB. She says the pandemic has brought more awareness to an important issue that is usually overlooked.
We know that these communities were hit the hardest, but we also know that these communities struggle when it comes to having equal access. And so, you know, COVID-19 shined the light into something that we knew, but more readily in our face kind of understanding with a pandemic.
According to the Small Business Administration, the total number of self-employed people declined by about 7% from July 2019 to July 2020. Black self-employed workers were hit the hardest, with a decline of about 18%.
I think when we realized that a huge population of businesses that had already been disenfranchised by the pandemic in general were now being disenfranchised by access to the funding that was available. It was only at that time that we began to really start to see Congress take an action that we believe would be beneficial for our Black-owned businesses and our minority businesses in general.
One program Hall is referring to gives businesses a government loan that does not have to be paid back. It is the Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP, but receiving that loan is not as simple as it seems.
I applied on March 31st. You know when I got that? I got help for PPP? Probably like 3 weeks ago. So you're talking about over 6 months.
But not all businesses were lucky enough to receive that loan.
You doing okay?
Keisha Dozier is the owner of the chocolate boutique. She didn't have to lay anyone off, but the pandemic forced the chocolate shop's doors to stay shut for 2 months. Since then, Dozier has applied for PPP 3 times.
We still to date, actually, like a lot of other businesses, small businesses of my size, never received one. What we found, honestly, were businesses that were larger than us were the ones that were more able to get PPP loans.
What was the process like applying for a PPP loan?
Completely harrowing. I'm not an accountant by trade, and the process was extremely convoluted. No one really knew exactly what to do. In the first 72 hours of the Paycheck Protection Program, the application had changed 2 or 3 times. So it was stressful.
It is unclear the exact number of small businesses that received PPP. The Small Business Association released the names of businesses that got $150,000 loans or more, which does not include most smaller businesses. The loan application also did not ask for demographic information, which would include race, a possible fix to the disparity of Black-owned businesses that received PPP.
Not receiving the PPP loan was disheartening. And it was a hard pill to swallow initially, just because we applied multiple times, and I felt like we were giving a lot of information, a lot of personal information, and it was just going into like an empty hole. Where's this information going?
On top of the pandemic, Black business owners watched the killings of Black men and women at the hands of police. As protests took to the streets in major cities, some turned to riots and looting when it got dark. Neither business was affected by the protests in Raleigh, but the Black Lives Matter movement, as well as the pandemic, elevated the voices of Black business owners.
And with the statewide shutdown, threw everything off. Now I can say, when phase 2 opened back up, and then, of course, when we have civil unrest in this country that we still dealing with, there's been a lot of focus on small Black business.
But not all Black business owners wanted that spotlight.
Or being thrust into the limelight because we are Black-owned was something that was very unexpected and very uncomfortable for us initially.
Why was it uncomfortable for you?
We didn't want people to patronize us because we were Black-owned. It didn't seem completely genuine.
The Black Lives Matter movement went from a social media hashtag to a global matter, but it has also shed light on the inequality that business owners like McNeil and Dozier face every day.
I mean, I've been Black for as long as I am old, so it's not been anything that's new to me. It's just been something that's been more eye-opening and new to others.
Why does it have to take something catastrophic to happen for us to come together? We live in the same neighborhoods, we live in the same state. You know what I'm saying? It's beneficial that everybody has opportunities.
Regardless of all these circumstances, you seem to have a lot of drive and grit. What do you hope for your business?
Business doesn't usually run on hope, so I have to do more than hope. I have to be confident in my staff and myself that we're going to make it happen, whatever that is. We roll with the punches. There are a lot of things that have been very unpredictable, but we are confident and we're faithful that we'll get through it.
While Dozier is remaining confident, McNeil is hopeful of the support he has been receiving from the Raleigh locals and beyond.
I don't want to set up business just like, hey, I'm here, we're here to do business, that's it. No, I want my community to know me and know what I bring to the table. And luckily, thank God, I've been here as long as I have. People know me, you know, so they know me, and I have good support, you know. I just know that I just keep pushing. I mean, this is one of the main reasons why I love what I do.
As COVID-19 cases across the country and North Carolina are on the rise, 30 Minutes sat down with McNeil again. Since we last saw him, he's applied to 15 grants and hasn't received any of them besides PPP back in August.
Right now, I'm not making any money. I'm just keeping the business going, you know what I'm saying? So it's not about making profits right about now, you know, so, you know, you can't even worry about profit margin as of now. It's just survival. Just survive.
With survival comes fight or flight, and McNeil is not ready to back down. But as cases continue to spike, he says he would rather keep his customers safe than make money.
We, as business owners, as business leaders, we have to set the tone for our communities. You know what I'm saying? We have to take unpopular positions just for the sake of our own customers. I want my customers around. I want them to come in and eat their food and be able to and live to talk about it. I don't want to hear none of my people dying because I wanted some money.
McNeil told us he doesn't expect to make a profit from his business until 2022. In the meantime, he hired another part-time employee and is looking for other ways to stay afloat, like catering and a food truck.
I put love in my food, so with all of that, that keeps me going. So when the profits do come, it's gonna be more than I can handle. The future for Alpha Dogs, though, is it will be franchised. We will be in your neighborhood. We will be in your ballpark and everything.
As the coronavirus pandemic began spreading across the U.S., Governor Roy Cooper ordered all North Carolina schools to transition to online learning on March 16, 2020. At the time, it was supposed to be for 2 weeks. But 9 months later, K-12 public schools in the Alamance-Burlington system are still meeting virtually, shining a light on a second pandemic-facing classrooms and students of color. It's Sunday night at the Russells' house, cooking dinner, playing chef on the iPad, getting ready for another week of kindergarten behind the screen.
6 plus 2.
Is how much?
That's called 8.
So Shane, how's school going?
Good.
Yeah.
I met new friends in my school on the computer.
Like many students, school looks different for Shane this year, with his kindergarten class at Marvin B. Smith Elementary meeting virtually. But there's an extra challenge for the Russells. Shane's mother, Alana, is an essential worker at UNC Medical Center, working in administration in the prosthetics and orthotics division.
I had to figure out where I would pretty much place him because I have to be at work and I can't be at work with a 5-year-old around patients and stuff like that.
In the morning, Shane will go to a private education center in Burlington to do his remote learning. It's called Genesis, and it provides a space for families like the Russells in need of assistance during the day. Let's say Genesis wasn't an option. What do you think things would look like right now?
I probably would not have a job right now because I'm never going to pick my job over my child, So if that was not an option, I have family members that could probably help out a few days during the week, but nothing consistent.
Director of Genesis, Davina Woods, says after hearing from families like the Russells about the stresses of virtual learning, she knew she had to step in to help, creating the program in August.
I've always been kind of pro-community, and definitely pro-children. And so if there is a need that the community has, and if it's specifically surrounding children, I want to do whatever I can.
Woods, with the help of her staff, oversees 32 students from kindergarten to 6th grade. Genesis charges tuition, but Woods says many parents are making cuts in their own budgets to make sure their children are taken care of.
Whether it's technology, whether it's access, whether it is, just meeting those fundamental and basic needs of food and shelter, those things have to happen.
Former Alamance County teacher Dason Passion is now an equity specialist for the Chapel Hill Carrboro City School District. He says the pandemic is shining a light on disparities that are infecting classrooms.
What we've seen from the pandemic is sort of an uncovering of inequities that have been there for decades. And we see that because we see those inequities in our own homes. So everything that we've been discussing isn't hidden behind school doors anymore. It's now out in people's living rooms.
The Citygate Dream Center in East Burlington began offering an online learning space in September. Almeda Frank sends 2 of her kids to the community center. Before the pandemic, Frank's 12-year-old son, Sean, was an honor roll student, but he says virtual learning is making school more challenging.
The biggest challenge for me is that's not being able to be in the classroom where the teachers can actually help you and turning your assignments there.
Almeda's 5th grader Yashi has been helping her siblings with schoolwork and mom taking care of things around the house, earning her the title Little Mom from people at the Dream Center.
I like having the responsibility because it's usually going my way. If they're doing it wrong, I tell them to do it right. If they're doing it right, I was like, okay, you got it.
Like Sean, though, Yashi misses learning in the classroom.
If I'm sitting in class and I see the teacher, if I need help, I could actually just walk over to her and just ask for help directly and get what she's talking about. But in like Zoom and online, it's just like you gotta go to different things in different places to like, get what you need to do, and like it's really hard.
According to Dream Center director Lisa Edwards, 99% of students in the area qualify for free lunch. Her daughter Lauren showed us around the center, which began distributing food at the start of the pandemic, giving away more than 19,000 meals in just 13 weeks. They're relying on grants for programming and the school district for food and laptops for the students, making it tuition-free for families. Almeda is a stay-at-home mom, and her husband was a welder for 24 years, but was laid off due to the pandemic. She says it's been a strain, but they're getting by without welfare.
They won't give us any assistance because I was told, you move out of your home and get your apartment, you can get something. And by me being the age that I am and a black female, I ain't getting rid of nothing I got.
What Almeda says she is relying on is her faith in God to help her take care of 3 kids, a grandchild, and a foster baby under her roof.
It's like 8 people in this house, and an extra one falls in your lap with nothing. And you be able to maintain your cars, your lights, and all that stuff still on. I think that's a big deal without getting no assistance. I think it's a lot.
According to data from the State Health Department, the Franks home and the Dream Center are in the hardest hit area of Alamance County, with more than 2,000 cases and 51 deaths. Though Almeda is enjoying a renewed sense of peace in an empty house during the day, she fears what would happen if COVID-19 entered her home.
We would just have to pray and pray that it never happens to nobody I know. So it would be really hard, I think.
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention say people of color are being disproportionately affected by COVID-19 and are nearly 5 times more likely to be hospitalized with the virus. The CDC also says people of color are more likely to be essential workers like Alana. Factors like childcare and the inability to take time off of work can also create a barrier in healthcare access. All of this trickling down to affect students of color.
Those children of color are the very ones that did not have internet within their homes or had very spotty internet or were attempting to use the hotspots on their phone in order to connect. Those children of color are the very ones who were finding it hard to balance their household budget with students being at home and eating multiple meals a day as opposed to just eating dinner at home. Those are the very students that were directly affected and immediately impacted by school closure.
K-12 Alamance Burlington schools plan to continue virtual learning until January 15th, 2021. Alana says she's grateful Shane will eventually get to have face-to-face interaction in the classroom, but it doesn't leave her without worries. And do you ever worry just being on the front lines about you or Shane getting the virus?
Every day, but we have to take precautions at work, wear masks, sanitize, and stuff like that. So me being around patients, I try to be as careful as possible. That was always in the back of my head, yeah.